Many of us live in a world now where tens of thousands of video games from the past are all readily available with minimal effort. Retro game shops, online auctions, and other methods make it so you can hit start on many great and not so great games at a moment's notice. Now, while the old games crowd is very much alive and thriving, there seems to be a locked focus, you might say, on a certain handful of games and nothing more. People tend to get their Marios and a couple of other games from their younger days and they're set. That's that. I'm a retro gamer. I played Super Mario 2 as a kid, and now my room is all Super Mario 2 all the time, and all I play on my retro device is Super Mario 2, and sometimes Crazy Taxi. Look, more power to you if that's all you're about. No judgments here. But honestly, there's so much more out there to discover. This series is for the rest of those games. What are they? Are they any good? Should you play through them? If you like X, will you like Y? Hi there, I'm Chuck. As of this recording, I am 48 years old, and I have been gaming since the Atari 2600 days. A few gaps here and there as life got in the way, but mostly it's been my most consistent hobby. As such, I know what games were like back then, and I know what games are like now. And knowing that, I also know that oftentimes it can be very difficult to go back. Advancements in graphics, sound, and hell, just the way to interact with a game have made it difficult to dive back into some older titles depending on their structure. Driving games have evolved, RPGs have changed. Sometimes the mechanics are just so good now that you don't want to have to deal with the way things used to be. Sure, we all had fun texting with our old Nokia phones, but does anyone really want to go back to hitting the number keys multiple times just to get to the right letter? Of course not. Older games can be the same way. Sometimes you just don't want to deal with their nonsense even if the end result is something you want. So here are my conditions for this series. I'm taking a look at old games from a modern perspective. Games that also hold zero nostalgia for me. These will be games that I have no particular attachment to because a nostalgia recommendation isn't exactly what you need when it comes to games from the past. However, as someone with experience from the era, I can steer you towards something you might enjoy if you also have similar interests, but are unfamiliar with the game being discussed. Okay, here's an example. I could sit down and play Combat on the Atari 2600 for hours and hours with a friend right now, because I love Combat, and as such, I think it still holds up. But is that a useful recommendation to you, a person who has never played Combat before? Probably not. Plus, there are 3 or 4 modern ways that you can play a game just like Combat, and so your time is probably better suited there. I could tell you to play the Atari 2600 version of Pole Position, because I played hundreds of hours of Pole Position as a kid, and would gladly play more of it right now. But when you could just as easily play the arcade version of Pole Position, or play modern racers like Gran Turismo and Forza Horizon, there's really no reason to make that recommendation. It's a nostalgia recommendation, and it doesn't do you any good. I wanted to get all that explanation out there before starting the actual series because it could be a tricky premise. I think, I hope that this is something that's going to be helpful for the gaming community. I see a lot of people reviewing devices and builds and software and such out there, but I rarely see people making in-depth gaming recommendations with a fresh and perhaps unique perspective. So I hope you find this useful. And it's for me as well. I want to know about these games that I missed growing up. And also, yes, I'm sure actually there are 1,000 other people out there doing this too. You don't need to write in and tell me. Whatever, I'm old, I'm an expert. This is an expert opinion I'm going to be giving you. I'm just not good at searching YouTube for similar content. Stupid algorithm. Now, right after this, if YouTube behaves itself, the first proper episode of this series should play. Now that you've got the premise, it should be easy to follow along. So get ready, here comes the first episode. Maybe, right after this thing. I don't know. Ring the bell or something. Anyway, here it comes.